tentang cloud computing yang sudah menjadi pusat dari pengalaman terbaru dan mengubah cara berbagai organisasi mengakses dan mengelola sumber daya komputasi mereka. Sebelum acara dimulai, kita akan memperkenalkan para narasumber pada siang hari ini. Agnes, bisa di-share screen-nya?
Perusahaan mana Pak tadi Pak?
US.
Namanya kayak ini.
Itu udah lama. Jadi hampir semua Microsoft masuk pakai Akamai. Biar pada tahu, buka wawasan.
Okay, so we have here Mr. Jay Jenkins, Chief Technology Officer of Akamai Cloud Computing. Good afternoon, Jay. Kemudian ada Pak Ono W. Purbo, mungkin tidak asing lagi bagi teman-teman ya, beliau adalah pakar telematika sekaligus rektor di Institut Teknologi Tangerang Selatan atau STTS. Selamat siang Pak Ono.
Siang semuanya. Ya. Gue belum ngeluarin video ya?
Ono, ya. Oke Pak. Oke, Agnes bisa di-share ini Agnes, slide-nya.
Stres.
Udah keprep aja, mana menyimak. Nanti kaget orang, Prof Ono berubah.
Oke, jadi agendanya hari ini kita simple aja. Pertama adalah presentasi oleh Jay mengenai cloud computing di APG market, yang kemudian dilanjutkan oleh presentasi oleh Pak Ono yang bicara tentang tren cloud computing di Indonesia. Jadi itu agenda pada hari ini, kemudian kita akan dilanjut dengan Q&A. Mungkin tanpa berpanjang kata, langsung saja kita akan memulai dengan presentasi oleh Jay.
Namanya emang J. Orang bule. Orangnya cool.
Masih muda bro.
Masih muda, cool.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about cloud in APJ, and then I'll talk some about sort of what Akamai is doing specifically in the region in order to help out. So my name is Jay Jenkins. I'm the CTO for cloud computing at Akamai. I'm based just nearby over in Singapore. There's been a huge focus at Akamai around APJ, and for very good reasons, just in terms of the amount of computing opportunity there is in the region, and also just the large amounts of diversity, the types of compute that are required in APJ. So we're going to get started quickly. We have a lot to get through. On the first slide, I'll talk a little bit about sort of what cloud computing looks like today. So where are we at? How does everything look? And I think the interesting thing is, while the digital touch points have changed, so no longer we tie to computer, we have mobile phones, you have autonomous vehicles, you have video games, you have VR headsets and all sorts of new capabilities. Cloud is still kind of the same. It's all centralized. Organizations are multi-cloud now, but whenever they're running multi-cloud services, they tend to duplicate the architecture across those services, or they'll vertically have a single application inside of a particular cloud. At the same time, there are huge amounts of pressure. So according to Gartner, even though this year cloud costs globally are $679 billion, by 2027 it will be $1 trillion US dollars. And that's a massive amount of growth. But not all of that growth is just coming from new technologies and new services needed by customers. 13% of that is actually coming from direct cloud costs. So that's actual cloud inflation, and that was up 13% just this year. Some of that is from direct increased cloud costs, and some of that is from decreasing the amount of services available in certain products as well. So there's this huge struggle with the cloud cost and the complexity of these multi-cloud deployments. So on the next slide, there's also AI, and AI is having a massive amount of impact in APJ. So in APJ specifically, 50% of companies are going to form strategic ties with specific cloud providers for generative AI or developer tools or infrastructure in order to support AI. And there's a 20% increase in technology spending, which is prioritizing these technologies, so around generative AI. And what you see from a lot of cloud platforms is that they're evolving to support these new kinds of architectures, these new kinds of applications. But how do you do that? If you're currently running in a centralized model where all compute is centralized and compute has to be close to the data because of data gravity, how do you actually get these services closer to where your users are, closer to where these devices are? And on the next slide, what we realized that the past decade's centralized computing model is going to have to evolve to meet these new challenges for these new kinds of applications and these new kinds of interactions. The centralized computing model it's just not going to work. It makes things far too latency sensitive for users in order to build these new applications. It makes it less resilient, less private, and these capabilities have to change. So on the next slide, you can sort of see what the solution is going to look like in the future. And what you see is you're still going to have these centralized cloud computing capabilities, but luckily over the last few years, organizations have moved more towards these cloud-native architectures, and that has a lot of benefits. It makes these applications, these services, more portable across clouds, so they can deal with things like concentration risk in a single cloud, or they can move their applications to a provider which gives them the best price for performance for that particular application. But more than that, it allows us to think about a new way to distribute computing. So it's no longer in a centralized location. You can actually have these edge-native applications which can be pushed out to where the customers actually are. You can push this out to actually where the data is being generated. You can have more real-time applications that can react faster to changes in the environment. And CDN and Edge are already there, right? These content delivery networks that Akamai invented 25 years ago are there. You have functions as a service at the edge, but these tend to be very lightweight types of frameworks. And these new edge-native applications are going to need new types of compute capabilities. They need actual data distributed. They need actual processing capabilities, full-stack processing capabilities at the edge in order to create these new applications. And you see a lot of providers doing this today. So on the next slide, what are the benefits of these edge-native applications? So the primary benefit would be low latency. So many of the customers that came to Akamai when we first started building these types of frameworks were looking at lower latency. How do we actually react in real time faster to where our users actually are? But another benefit of that are things like resiliency and redundancy. And that is the same architecture that Akamai gets benefit out of whenever it's creating its CDN and its security products. By being able to host this in a distributed computing fashion, any single node is no longer a point of failure. You have multiple copies of this service that can be run anywhere around the globe. You have the capability to geographically control this location. So things like data sovereignty, things like privacy can now be geographically controlled. So you can make sure that the compute is happening closer to where that user is. And then finally, high performance capabilities. So these edge native applications give you the capability to distribute compute closer to where users are. So imagine something like virtual reality. That low latency actually leads to higher performance. Imagine if you could offload the Apple Vision Pro's processing onto the cloud. You would actually have a lighter weight headset, one that is more appealing to an end consumer. So Apple likes to talk about the fact that it can process the image from outside of the headset, inside of the headset in 12 milliseconds. Well, if you actually had edge access computing closer to where users are, you can actually have single-digit millisecond latency, which opens up all sorts of new possibilities for things like AR and VR, but also for other things like IoT devices. So what is Akamai trying to do in this space? So what we're trying to do is make sure that this edge type of processing has the capacity, but also provides cost savings, not just in terms of pure and direct costs, but in terms of simplified costs. So how can we make this easy and transparent for our users? We're going to use the global network that we've built over the past 25 years in order to expand the global reach. And we're creating a continuum of compute. So this isn't just about a customer or a user moving an entire workload onto Akamai. This is a new type of world. This is around distributed computing, around multi-cloud computing. And there's going to be a continuum of compute available on an open platform. And being an open platform is extremely important, as I mentioned portability before. And if users are locked into a particular cloud, it's going to make it hard for them to take advantage of these distributed networks. So being able to lean into open source and open frameworks is going to allow our customers and their customers to have better experiences when using these platforms. Next page. So inside of Akamai, we've been on our own journey. So we are a multi-cloud company. We've been using multiple hyperscalers, and what we're doing is we're sharing our own experience with our customers and with anybody who would like to understand how we did this migration, about how we moved not only stuff onto Akamai, but how we rationalized and moved more towards open source frameworks in order to give us the flexibility that was required. So since starting this, we realized the 40% cost savings for our infrastructure, and that is including internal billing costs. So, if we were looking at Akamai's own list prices, we've saved 40% of costs and been able to improve performance through lower latency of our data ingesting and processing pipelines. Over the next couple of years, we hope to see this expand to a 70% cost savings through various architectural changes and moving more towards the open frameworks, which is going to make our applications more portable across different clouds. And on the next slide, we've also published specific things that we did in order to overcome specific challenges with these sorts of migrations. So how do we manage security and compliance, our own constrained IT skill sets? How did we budget and cost across multiple clouds? How did we deal with incompatibilities across these different clouds and infrastructures? How did we migrate our data? How did we deal with any business continuity and downtime issues? And finally, and probably one of the most important ones, is how do we deal with the change inside the organization and the resistance that parts of the organization might have with migrating some of these applications. And it really came down to us for these 5 things, and we have these things detailed in a white paper, which is available around Project Cirrus. We established clear goals, we assessed our current landscape, we identified different interdependencies among those critical systems. We were prepared to address those risks and challenges. And then finally, we used automation. This was a big part of what we did, and it's a big part of our portability story. Automating those tools and having infrastructure as code allows us to run the same types of application on any cloud. Next slide. And so what we've learned from this is, our customers really need to think about how we decentralize this, but we really want to make sure we build and deliver these powerful edge-native applications, which is where our heritage lies in terms of what we've been building for the past 25 years, and we also understand that that is where organizations are heading. When we started on this journey after the acquisition of Linode 3 years ago, our customers wanted us to be out at the edge. They wanted us to use the same capabilities we've been building for CDN in order to get closer to their customers. Next slide. So this is the continuum of compute that we are building. So the core services, which you would expect on any cloud, certainly, and the edge services that we've also already had in terms of CDN and functions as a service. We're building hundreds of these locations, these distributed locations, to give compute capabilities closer to where users are, closer to where data is generated, closer to where the value is delivered. Next slide. And this is just a quick slide around all of the computing services that we provide. Again, these are compute services that you would expect from any hyperscaler. And we also have managed services such as MySQL databases and Postgres databases as well. Next slide. So these are our core and distributed computing regions as they are today. Since our acquisition of Linode, we've more than doubled the core computing regions and recently have launched new computing regions in Madrid and Melbourne.
Ini langsung sama
We've
Akamai.
also launched 10 of these new distributed computing regions, which are
Biar pada
closer to
pinter.
the customer with
Bahasa
our
Inggris.
considered edge access
Sampai sore di
points.
sini.
So they are close to our
Iya,
points of
di
presence,
sini lagi.
which gives us
Kan kita
very low
pakai
latency
ini.
for
Jin.
markets that might be underserved. And we also have a region in Jakarta. And on the next slide,
Oh,
you
gitu.
can see not just Jakarta, but we have edge compute
Harus
regions
di-
in several
mereka kerja
regions,
sama sama
or
Internet.
several cities throughout Indonesia. As everybody on this call knows, Indonesia itself is a very distributed country
Bentar, ini dulu,
with
biar-
over 18,000 islands. And in order to serve Indonesia, over the past 25 years, Akamai has had to invest in edge locations
Ini
throughout
pusat ininya dia.
Indonesia. These locations are part of our continuum of compute. Functions as a service are available at these edges in order to democratize access to the internet and make sure that experiences and capabilities aren't just in a centralized location like Jakarta, but you can get that closer to the user, closer to the devices, closer to where that data is generated in order to have more localized functionality
Spesifik
throughout
baru
Indonesia.
bawan ini. Sengajain di sini.
On the
biar
next
udah
slide.
langsung.
So some of the things that we've announced as part of this effort as well are first of all the Akamai app platform. So open source is critical to what we're doing. This year we've invested a lot in cloud native functionalities that give applications portability. This included upgrading our membership in CNCF from silver to gold, and we've also pledged $1 million in credits to CNCF open source projects as well. It's extremely important for us to support that community in order to make sure that technology remains open and that customers can choose to run their applications how they want. In order to help with that, we launched the Akamai App Platform. So Kubernetes itself, which is a CNCF project, is a great platform for running applications because it does allow you to containerize apps. Kubernetes, however, is also a platform for other platforms. In order to have an enterprise implementation, you need not just Kubernetes, but other upstream projects. Akamai App Platform allows you to deploy
Saya lagi
those projects
orang Akamai.
with a few clicks. So instead of having months of work in order to integrate these other projects, you can have that up and running in 20 minutes, and it's already integrated with Akamai services. And it's already pre-configured itself.
Yeah.
So one of the open source projects, as an example, is Kyvernos, which is a security open source project that is automatically configured with best practice security policies
Sip.
to make sure that whenever developers launch onto this platform, that those applications stay safe. App Platform is being provided for free. This is about removing toil from developers. It is about making sure that they can get started quickly, and we want to make sure that stays free. Akamai does charge, however, for the resources being used underneath. So the app platform is being provided for free. It is open source, and we want to make sure that these developers can get started quickly, and platform engineers can create a home for the developers as well. All right, on the next slide.
Yang nyebarin itu baru.
Also in beta is LKE Enterprise. So LKE is Linode Kubernetes Engine, and Linode Kubernetes Engine Enterprise expands the cluster support for higher capacity, and it also integrates a project called Cilium. And on this slide that's misspelled, so it should be Cilium. And Cilium is an extremely important cloud-native computing foundation project.
Ini langsung sama
It
Akamai ini.
is very tightly integrated with observability platforms, so it gives better observability for organizations that are running on top of Kubernetes. Next slide.
Seminar.
We've also increased the capability of our managed databases by partnering with a company called Ivan. This will start with Postgres and MySQL implementation, and will expand over the next year with Redis being one of the highest prioritized items on the roadmap according to our customers. So this is available now in 20 of our data centers. Next slide. GPUs. This is a question a lot of people ask, and with AI in particular, distributed computing really plays into
Sini kalau nggak dikirim,
where
gua kirim ke sana aja.
customers actually want to
Kirim
do
ke
inference,
sana.
which
Kalimantan, gue
is
ingin
closer to where their users are.
pakai ini.
These GPUs, these RTX 4000s, are great at certain types of workloads. Encoding is absolutely for media. Things like graphics rendering and lightweight inference as well. And by lightweight, it's still pretty heavyweight, honestly. So an RTX 4000 can do things like generative AI for images very affordably. So we've done some recent benchmark studies, and it can do that at 1/5 the cost of recommended GPUs for other providers.
Jadi waktu mau undang saya kasih cepet.
Next slide.
Kaget orang gitu.
And now I will hand it over to Akano to talk specifically about computing trends in Indonesia.
Thank you, Jay. Now my turn. Pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya, biar gampang. Oke, lanjut, silakan. Kita akan bicara dua hal sih, nanti computing trend di Indonesia dan juga tentang tantangannya. Gitu. Cuman saya nggak tahu, anda tahu nggak yang diomongin sama Jay tadi sih? Itu yang diomongin keren banget sih. Ada cloud native computing segala macam, dan Akamai ternyata saya juga baru tahu sih jujur bahwa Akamai ternyata pendorong open source terutama di cloud computing ya, dan itu keren banget sih. Oke, next, silakan. Nah, ini saya akan bicara soal landscape-nya dari cloud computing di ini saya di ruangan yang seru banget sih sebenarnya. Tapi kira-kira ini semua menjadi dasar terjadinya transformasi digital di Indonesia di berbagai sektor. Karena si komputasi jadi murah, lebih affordable, jadi akhirnya pihak swasta jadi bisa masuk ke dunia ini tanpa terlalu harus pusing urusan teknis. Dan ini juga akhirnya membuat mobile device adoption, konsumsi dari big data jadi naik. Data yang ada ngambil kiri kanan segala macam. Marketnya diproyeksiin sekitar 2,1 billion US dollar di 2024 lah, dengan rate-nya kenaikannya 14,52 dan mudah-mudahan tahun 2029 mencapai 4,2 billion US dollar. Itu gede banget sih. Next. Kalau kita lihat tren cloud computing Indonesia, next. Ini Ini di bawahnya ada URL-nya, dapat dari mana ya? Ono nyontekin dari mana? Kebanyakan dari media sih. Jadi ini kalau di sini bilangnya sih hybrid cloud adoption. Hybrid itu kira-kira antara public sama private ya, on premise sama di internet. Tapi jujur, apa yang diceritain sama Jay tadi itu keren banget. Jay ngomong soal edge computing. Jadi itu menarik karena itu kayaknya nggak terlalu terdeteksi sama provider cloud-cloud yang lain. Jadi Akamai ternyata mendeteksi adanya tren ke arah edge computing yang membuat si cloud itu menjadi lebih dekat lagi dengan kita sebagai user, dan konsekuensinya adalah dia menjadi lebih low latency, jadi cepet banget apa-apa, dan ini kepake banget terutama di misalnya di tambang itu udah nggak bisa pakai cloud sebenarnya, mereka makanya edge computing. Jadi yang solusi-solusi seperti ini banyak tidak terlalu dilihat di cloud provider yang besar-besar, maksudnya yang konvensional tanda kutip lah. Nah ini jadi menarik pada saya. Ini tadi saya juga dengerin apa yang Jay omongin sih. Oke. Akamai keren banget sih cara berpikirnya. Agak beda sebenarnya sama yang cloud yang konvensional yang saya ajarkan di kampus, gitu ya. Jadi kalau di kampus lebih ke arah hybrid, scalability, fleksibel kayak gitu. Next. Nah, kalau dari sisi sektor spesifik, yang paling kerasa yang pasti di banking, financial, insurance, itulah untuk finance pasti kerasa banget ya cloud. Yang di Indonesia mungkin mulai mengarah itu yang healthcare sama life science mulai ngarah sana. Kalau di luar sih udah jamak. Kalau yang financial udah jelas. Nah, yang mulai kelihatan juga adalah di retail consumer. Itu mulai banyak, soalnya banyak orang-orang butuh presence, banyak usaha kecil menengah mau presence di internet. Kemarin saya kebetulan juga nganalisa datanya punya Kementerian Koperasi sama UMKM. UMKM yang berhasil dapat omset besar dengan modal kecil itu adalah mereka yang onboarding kayak di internet. Jadi cloud itu kepake banget buat mereka. Jadi kalau enggak omsetnya kecil. Jadi itu kelihatan banget di retail sama consumer, itu emang kelihatan banget karena itu yang membuat omset naik, kira-kira kayak gitu. Next. Kalau di public sector jelas, saya nggak usah nyebut angkanya dulu ya, tapi di public sector kira-kira gini, di Indonesia itu ada yang namanya Sistem Pemerintahan Berbasis Elektronik (SPBE) yang Pusat Data Nasionalnya jebol kemarin. Tapi itu contoh clear banget bahwa si pemerintah akan lari ke arah cloud. Jadi semua kementerian, lembaga, kabupaten, kota, semua aplikasinya akan ditarik masuk ke cloud. Dan pemerintahnya, ini mohon maaf, mereka berusaha mensentralkan semua ini masalah efisiensi, anggaran segala macam, dan dalam bentuk Pusat Data Nasional. Nah, kesalahan fatalnya adalah kemungkinan mereka mungkin nggak punya expertise seperti yang ada di Akamai, di cloud provider lain, akibatnya jebol yang kemarin. Tapi kecenderungan itu kelihatan banget, dan itu anggarannya gede banget. PDN yang kemarin yang jebol kan anggarannya triliun itu. Jadi kita bisa lihat banget, barangkali ini salah satu yang akan mendorong bagaimana kita bisa berubah sih Indonesia. Next. Kalau ini kayaknya ya banyak perusahaan-perusahaan gede invest. Akamai jelas kelihatan tadi, Jay cerita, juga perusahaan-perusahaan yang lain invest, bisa dilihat di inilah ya, di Google ininya ya, kita bisa googling informasinya. Tapi investasinya besar. Next aja, ini kayaknya banyak yang di skip bagian ini, bisa dicari. Kalau ini government initiative digital transformation. Nah ini yang tadi sebenarnya. Yang paling gede itu Pusat Data Nasional, satu lagi adalah Satu Data. Inisiatif 2 itu yang akan mendrive kebutuhan cloud di public sector maupun private sector akhirnya. Ujungnya biasanya argumentasinya adalah kedaulatan data sih. Kita pengen supaya datanya nggak ada di luar negeri, maunya di Indonesia. Nah ini jadi menarik, tadi dari slide yang ditampilkan Jay, dia ngasih lihat bahwa edge-nya ada di paling nggak 6-7 kota di Indonesia. Jadi datanya ada di Indonesia, nggak ada di luar sih sebenarnya. Jadi masalah kedaulatan data jadi oke, security jadi lebih gampang, compliance lebih gampang, semuanya jadi lebih gampang sih sebenarnya. Next. Oke, jadi itu kira-kira secara umum tentang computing market di Indonesia, pergerakannya kemana, karakteristiknya gimana, lebih ke arah hybrid sama hybrid cloud. Tapi tadi dari Jay kelihatan banget ada satu teknologi yang belum banyak dibahas, yaitu edge computing. Dan harapannya ini semua membuat Indonesia menjadi salah satu negara yang menarik untuk bidang cloud computing di Asia Tenggara lah paling enggak. Oke, kayaknya habis. Oke, ada masalah nih. Bagaimana masalahnya untuk adopsi cloud di Indonesia? Next. Ini saya cepat aja ya. Biasanya masalah yang dikejar masalah cost, efisiensi, scalability, itu yang dikejarnya. Mereka berusaha mereduce itu. Next. Dengan menggunakan cloud, si bisnis jadi lebih agile, lebih gampang manuver, lebih bergerak karena dia nggak usah lagi mikirin investasi di peralatan, server dan sebagainya. Dia bergeraknya lebih gampang, urusan infrastruktur jadi lebih bisa disupin ke provider cloud. Jadi dia pergerakannya lebih gampang. Next. Dan ini dengan adanya cloud ini, tool-tool yang dibutuhkan buat kolaborasi, productivity, semuanya sudah ada di online. Jadi ini gampang banget. Paling gampang gini lah. Kalau mau file sharing gampang, mau ngedit dokumen rame-rame gampang, mau koordinasi gampang, semuanya jadi gampang banget karena toolnya sudah ada di cloud semua. Saya nggak usah nyebut merek ya. Next. Nah ini yang seru, yang jarang orang lihat sebetulnya. Untuk bisa melakukan transformasi digital, engine di belakangnya adalah AI, machine learning, sama big data analytic. Dan cloud ini, beberapa cloud menyiapkan GPU untuk kebutuhan ini. Kemarin saya ngobrol sama Jay, mereka ada GPU-nya, tapi kalau buat ngasih bikin model data seperti ChatGPT yang gede banget, mungkin nggak sampai situ, tapi GPU ada. Jadi itu yang akan jadi engine yang akan mendorong digital transformasi baik di pemerintah maupun di swasta segala macam. Karena ini kuncinya AI, machine learning, big data analysis untuk insight, untuk decision making dan sebagainya. Next. Oke. Dengan adanya cloud udah jelas paling gampang sih market jadi lebih terbuka, apakah untuk e-commerce, apakah buat platform-platform yang lain, jadi kebuka banget. Tapi ada kuncinya di balik itu semua adalah infrastruktur sih, infrastruktur kabelnya ya, fiber segala macam, itu yang kuncinya. Kalau itu nggak nyampe kemana-mana ya ngepol sampai situ aja. Tapi kalau kita lihat perkembangan dari data-data dari teman-teman di ABGI, itu kan kita progresnya lumayan hari ini ya, lebih dari 200 juta yang ada di internet. Udah lebih dari jumlah penduduk Indonesia lah, user internet Indonesia lebih banyak daripada penduduk Indonesia. Itu mengagumkan sekali. Saya aja bingung akhirnya. Jadi yang ada di internet bukan orang kali ya. Tapi kira-kira keren banget. Next. Nah, inovasi-inovasi yang sektor spesifik itu banyak banget. Mungkin kalau banking sama finance itu ada fintech dan sebagainya ya. Tapi yang jadi masalah besar nanti adalah bagaimana kita deteksi fraud. Kebetulan kemarin juga saya berinteraksi sama teman-teman BI, OJK segala macam. Mereka pakai AI sih. Dan itu keren. Yang mereka lakukan inovasi banget. Kalau nggak salah tahun lalu bulan Juni apa Juli, teman-teman BI kan juga ngadain hackathon AI. Nah itu urusannya seru banget di sebelah sana. Untuk healthcare, nah ini yang seru nih karena healthcare termasuk teknologi sektor yang sangat konservatif. Nah ini telemedicine, health record segala macam itu jadi seru. Tapi kita ngelihat aplikasi kayak Hellodoc muncul banyak banget. Jadi itu kelihatan banget sih di healthcare. Di education ini kebetulan kalau saya di kampus kita ngelepasin semua kuliah free di internet. Jadi kita makainya cloud, jujur kita pakai cloud sih. Kalau langsung ke servernya kita overload di servernya. Jadi akhirnya kita pakai cloud dan itu kita lemparin ke internet dengan lewat cloud tadi. Kita lepasin semua kuliah free, kemudian orang bisa dapat sertifikat free dan udah gitu semuanya bisa ditransfer jadi kredit sarjana di kampus. Dan itu cukup bikin pusing asesor dari Diknasnya juga sih. Jadi nanti selain kita melakukan inovasi, kita juga harus banyak terjadi negosiasi sama regulasi. Karena inovasi yang kita lakukan kadang-kadang agak nyerempet. Next. Nah, untuk ini semua kita jelas butuh dukungan pemerintah. Tapi ngelihat sepak terjang Ibu Mutia kemarin keren sih. Mudah-mudahan itu bisa terus dijaga. Mudah-mudahan teman-teman media juga bisa mendukung sepak terjangnya supaya kita bisa maju semua sih. Next.
Pak 2 menit lagi Pak ya?
Berapa? 2 menit lagi?
Ya.
Ya udah cepet aja dah. Oke, sekarang challenge-nya ini masalah kedaulatan data karena ada PDP itu challenge-nya. Next lagi. Security. Nah, kita punya masalah besar. Contoh masalahnya kira-kira gini. PDN Pusat Data Nasional jebol. Saya ngelepasin kuliah cyber security free yang ikut 28.000 yang bisa dapat sertifikat dengan nilai 90 cuma 41 orang. Padahal itu free. Jadi itu kita punya masalah besar di SDM, di kemampuan kita sih sebenarnya. Next. Nah, ini connectivity sama infrastruktur paling gampang masuk ke networkperformance.com NPerf. Kita bisa lihat banget gapnya kacau sekali di Indonesia. Di rural connectivity-nya parah, fiber susah, dan ini jadi tantangan kita semua. Itu jadi PR, bukan kita nggak komplain, itu PR kita, itu opportunity bahwa bangsa ini jadi kerjaan banyak buat urusan infrastruktur. Next. Ini juga kurang, tapi saya berterima kasih atas kontribusi teman-teman di Akamai. Jay tadi cerita mereka kontribusi gila-gilaan di Cloud Native ini Foundation. Jadi kalau itu bisa nyampe ilmunya ke Indonesia, itu jadi akan memperbanyak orang-orang yang ahli cloud tadi. Ini gue kerasa banget sih. Ini yang minta ke saya banyak di kampus. Next. Ini cost mismanagement juga, ini masalah mindset ya dari sisi manajemen. Orang berpikir kadang-kadang kita harus beli server, beli apa segala macam, padahal segala macamnya bisa di cloud. Jadi kalau kita bisa ngerubah pricing model, bisnis modelnya, itu kita bisa ini bagian edukasi lah. Kita bisa sebenarnya ngerubah supaya UMKM kita bisa onboarding semua jadi lebih efisien dan kita jadi bisa terbang semua sih. Next. Nah, ini yang agak ngeri adalah vendor lock. Jadi kita dikunci sama vendor. Nah, kalau tadi dengerin ceritanya Jay, ini Akamai luar biasa. Ini mereka memungkinkan supaya vendor lock tidak terjadi. Jadi coba perhatiin baik-baik waktu Jay cerita ya. Dia ngasih lihat banget. Jadi ini dimungkinkan adanya hybrid segala macam, mereka sangat mungkin. Jadi ini keren banget sih. Next. Ini saya ngerasain banget asli. Saya kebetulan ketemu sama beberapa perusahaan gede-gede, dikasih soal AI, saya udah bikinin aplikasinya, mereka nggak berani. Karena masalah SDM sih sebenarnya, mereka tidak nyaman dengan perubahan. Ya ini yang harus kita dobrak sih. Next. Mudah-mudahan habis nih. Aduh, sisanya dibaca aja ya. Baca aja ya lainnya.
Nanti ya pertanyaannya akan dikirim teman-teman ya.
Iya, terima kasih Om Didin.
Okay, terima kasih Pak Ono. Jay, thank you Jay for the presentation. I think the media have a question to ask. Silakan teman-teman kalau ada pertanyaan disampaikan melalui chat ya. Boleh dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya dan Agnes akan membantu untuk translate.
Ini namanya Agraprom Translate. Biasanya Google, sekarang Agraprom. Belum ada pertanyaan?
Itu J-nya ya, Pak.
Iya. Ini sebelah saya ada mahasiswa ini sebelah saya, jangan khawatir. Biar pada pinter. Ini ada Fata. Ini mau S2 di Taiwan.
Atau kalau mau langsung menyampaikan silakan. Biasanya Mbak Lili yang suka ada pertanyaan.
Dah, mau nanya dah. Mahasiswa nggak boleh nanya di sini.
Silakan, boleh di open mic aja ya teman-teman. Kalau nulis selangan nanti.
Ini sorry gue.
Silakan.
Tadi Ono yang ngomong. Ini kira-kira
Mas Desma, Mas Arif, Mbak Lili, biasanya ada pertanyaan?
nah itu ada Mas Desmal tuh nanya.
Sudah ada tuh. Okay, I will read the question. It's for Jay. So, it is said that everything will be easier by AI and cloud.
Media.
But how important is the security in cloud adoption and how Akamai can provide protection optimally for the security issue?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I think a lot of the promises of cloud honestly haven't been kept. Are things easier in cloud? Certain things are, right? The ability to scale up and down is easier. Like, you can move to an OpEx model instead of a CapEx model. Some of those things are easier, but cloud can actually be quite complex, and that's why security is a concern. Making things secure in the cloud are very different than making things secure in an on-premise implementation. That said, an on-premise implementation isn't necessarily secure either, but your attack surface is much smaller, right? It's just your organization. Whereas your attack surface for a cloud provider is whoever is on that cloud. So it's a much larger, a much bigger attack target, right? So in terms of security in cloud, Akamai is one of the leading providers of security products, in the world, and for us, in particular, for those organizations moving into cloud, making it as simple as possible actually makes it as secure as possible, right? The more complex the system, the harder it is to wrap your head around that and secure it. So for us, first of all, it leads with simplicity. I really love, there's a quote by a computer scientist named Alan Kay, which I think about all the time, which is, keep the simple things simple, but make sure the complex things are possible. And that's what a cloud should really focus on. By keeping things simple, it makes it easier to secure. That said, with the app platform, we're trying to make a safe landing zone. So Kubernetes itself is a complex platform. By having the app platform be pre-configured with specific best practice security configurations, it makes that a safer environment for customers to deploy on. It's also important, I think, for any cloud to not just look at things as a shared responsibility in terms of security, but it's important for a cloud vendor, a cloud provider to understand that they know more about their cloud than their customer does. And it is their duty to inform them of the best practices and actively look for threats on behalf of that customer in order to protect them. With Akamai, with our global footprint and our security products, we're doing just that. We're making sure that we're in a place that we can provide our customers the best device.
Mendingan kuping lebih penting.
Oke, sudah cukup ya, Mas Desma. Ada lagi pertanyaan?
Yang susah
Silakan.
kuping.
Langsung aja. Mbak Lili, boleh Mbak Lili? Itu udah ada. Dari Mbak Galuh. So, Galuh from Kompas.com asked 2 questions. First is, how can Akamai's edge computing solution help SMEs in Indonesia and that are undergoing digital transformation? First, and second is, how does Akamai see the potential of edge computing in supporting SMEs in Indonesia, considering that infrastructure is still uneven here? Jay, please.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I often, think back, when I've been covering this region for a long time, and I often think back to sort of really how far Indonesia has come, since I've been in this region, and there's been a lot of, even though there's a long way to go, there's been Indonesia itself has come a long way in understanding how unfair really the internet can be and how unfair access to technology can be. One of the great things about working at Akamai is we do have this global footprint, and we also look at these kinds of problems in a very unique way, right? It's never from a centralized location out, it's always from the outside in. So how can we get closer to customers? How can we give access where there is no access today? How can we open up a new edge data center and give access and create a fair internet for people who didn't before. So, for those SMEs, that are looking at expanding, first of all, in terms of simplicity, Pak Ono talked about, some of the challenges with finding talent. By making things easy and simple and implementing things in a very straightforward manner, it makes it easier for these small organizations to get started. So the company we acquired, Linode, is very well loved by these smaller businesses and by developers, simply because of its simplicity. We don't have hundreds of products that aren't useful for small and medium enterprises listed when you open up the console. We're very focused on providing very simple services to make it easier for these businesses to get started. It's also extremely inexpensive. By keeping things simple, we've been able to, reduce the price of our virtual machines by a massive amount. So, we'd say some customers just doing like-for-like implementations of 40%. So again, for small businesses that are trying to get started, it's a really easy way for them to get implemented. Now, for those organizations that are sort of B2C, that are working with consumers, so, in Indonesia, you have a lot of consumers, right? Over 280 million people that are vying for these services. One of the other pain points for a lot of organizations are egress costs. Egress is extremely expensive. Again, Akamai, we've invested a lot in creating this global network, and therefore our egress is extremely low cost. So, to give you an example, our egress fees are ½ cent per gigabyte. If you look at any of the hyperscalers, their pricing starts at 5 cents per gigabyte. So it's 1/10 the cost, simply because all the work we put into creating this global infrastructure. So those costs are really, keeping those costs low and keeping things simple are really going to help those SMEs. On the second part around edge computing and the SMEs in Indonesia, and the fact that infrastructure is uneven. One of the things we're really trying to do with distributed compute and our vision for distributed computing is recognizing that computing needs are different, and not every location needs a massive data center with huge farms of machines. Some locations can have a much smaller footprint in order to serve those needs. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with this continuum of computing. So it's a mix of these core locations, these massive locations, these distributed locations with still full stack computing capability, and the edge locations that we have scattered across Indonesia, which have very simple functions as a service to help serve those customers. And that's one of the things we're really focused on doing is making sure that we have the right type of compute in the right location in order to democratize that as much as we can.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Next question is from Arif Burhan, Canggih.id. Just for Pak Ono. Pak Ono, ini ada pertanyaan, Pak. Pertanyaan pertama tentang kekhawatiran akan tersikirnya SDM oleh automation. Pertama dalam hal ini kan di segmen AI cloud computing, bagaimana menyikapinya. Yang kedua adalah tentang bagaimana meyakinkan organisasi Indonesia yang mereka biasanya mengelola database secara tradisional. Bagaimana agar mereka dikasihkan ke cloud, Pak? Okay, so the question is about the fear that AI will take over a human. The first question. Second is about how to convince organization to integrate cloud computing in their organization. Ya, oke.
Ini urusan AI ngambil alih manusia ya. Kalau saya pribadi nggak takut, soalnya manusia pasti lebih. Manusia is more creative, human is more creative, human is more innovative than AI. So in terms of creativity, innovation, human is more than AI. In terms of efficiency, tentang efisiensi, AI memang lebih efisien daripada manusia. Jadi kalau saya cenderungnya gini, kita akan memaksimalkan AI, tapi kita perlu ngasih empowerment, kita perlu kasih knowledge ke orang-orang supaya kita jangan sampai terjebak ke kerjaan-kerjaan yang sifatnya otomasi, yang sifatnya rutin. Kalau yang sifatnya rutin nanti bisa diganti AI atau robot. Jadi kita nanti lebih ke arah yang lebih menggunakan inovasi, lebih ke creativity, lebih menggunakan brain, kira-kira kayak gitu sih. Nah ini tantangan buat kita semua. Kalau kita masih ke yang rutin, masalah prosedur, ya pokoknya yang rutin-rutin bisa berabe ini urusannya. Ini masalahnya ada di guru, dosen, kampus, Ono. Jadi itu dosanya Ono. Terus yang kedua, sorry, masalah, waduh pertanyaannya banyak ya. Saya ngomong cepat aja ya biar ini.
Tentang bagaimana meyakinkan agar mereka menggunakan cloud dalam.
Oke, untuk meyakinkan orang penggunaan cloud kira-kira gini. Kalau yang menggunakan aplikasi sendirian, cloud nggak dibutuhin. Tapi kalau kita sudah mulai banyak orang di organisasi dan harus sharing resource, nggak mungkin kalau nggak pakai cloud. Kira-kira gitu. Paling blow on mah contoh sederhana ini, minta maaf nyebut produk ya. Misalnya kita ngedit dokumen rame-rame. Pasti kita ke Google Doc nih, kira-kira kayak gitu. Jadi kalau udah mulai sharing, dan ini pasti akan terjadi di semua perusahaan, sharing itu pasti cloud, nggak mungkin enggak. Nah kalau mau maju harus sharing, kerja bareng, kerja sama, nggak mungkin nggak pakai cloud, kira-kira kayak gitu sih.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Ono. Saya Pak Ono. Next question is from Aldo from Medcom ID. So is cloud-based AI supporting the development of smart cities in Indonesia? Is 4J.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, so cloud, and I think Paco talked about this as well, right? Is really the only answer for AI at the moment. In terms of the types of processing capabilities that it has and the scalability that it has, you really need to rely on cloud capabilities or some sort of whether that's private or public, but you need some sort of cloud capability in order to really make the use out of AI. Now, for smart cities in particular, it's going to be even more important to have this distributed computing capability, and that's going to evolve over time, and not just from companies like Akamai. It's going to come from a lot of government infrastructure investment. It's going to come from private industry looking at. I've talked to other cities that are looking at embedding compute into streetlights. In order to create this new distributed computing network. And to really have a smart city, you need to really be able to create, a digital twin of the city. In order to do that in real time and be able to aggregate and react to things in real time, you're going to need distributed computing. Whenever I'm talking to customers, I kind of like to think about it as like reflexes, right? So there are times, where you want everything to go to your brain and you want to make a decision, but there are times where if you touch something hot, you want your hand to react right away before something bad happens. So imagine, a smart city. If you have a good digital twin, you'll be able to distribute that decision-making capability to where it's needed, right? So if you need to make a decision in Bali and Denpasar, right? You want that decision to be made as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, there are different levels of data aggregation. So imagine you're measuring traffic in a particular location. You only need to aggregate the data for that location in order to make decisions. You don't need to aggregate the data for all of Indonesia in order to make that traffic decision. So for smart cities, distributed compute is extremely important, and edge access has a strong role to play there in order to aggregate that data at a community level or a metro level.
Okay, next question is from Fatul Maskut from BCC Indonesia. So the first question is, I think it's for both. First is about what are the factors that make adoption of cloud diverse between sectors, financial, healthcare, and retail. And second is how's trend of cloud adoption in the manufacturing sector. Since Indonesia has been going for the industry 4.0. Mungkin Pak Ono dulu, Pak Ono first, and then Jay can comment.
I was thinking Jay first.
Okay. Pak Ono slide.
Oke, ini Ono pribadi ya. Ono pribadi, saya jujur yang paling fatal di kita adalah kalau duit kita nggak masalah. Indonesia punya uang, oke, banyak. Prosedur kita nggak masalah. Jadi kalau kita ngelihat suatu sistem, I normally see as people, process, technology. Okay, so proses itu berbentuk aturan, prosedur segala macam. Kita proses. Teknologi kita sebetulnya kita punya uang banyak. Yang paling fatal di kita adalah manusia, SDM. Jadi mau di sektor finance, healthcare, retail, urusannya manusia sih. Ini saya kasih contoh real aja. Kemenkoperasi UMKM kemarin ngasih lihat data ke saya 13 juta UMKM. Kelihatan di situ bahwa UMKM yang bisa punya omset besar adalah yang pakai internet. Cuman UMKM yang pakai internet tadi ternyata adalah mereka yang berpendidikannya S1. Jadi itu fatalnya di sebelah sana, education. Trend adoption in manufacturing sector, industri 4.0. Kebetulan saya ngobrol sama teman-teman IoT, Internet of Things, IoT, dan itu jadi backbone dari industri 4.0. Jadi mereka itu jadi urusannya gini ya. Secara teknologi kita ada orang-orang yang jago-jagonya sih sebetulnya. Cuma nanti harus matching antara si manajemen sama teknologi. Bahwa ini ada teknologinya, ada orang yang jagonya. Manajemen berani nggak ngambil langkah? Karena mereka kan melihatnya sebagai risk. Ini risk. Kalau dia investnya salah, uangnya nggak balik gitu. Nah, kita harus meyakinkan bahwa ini ada orang jago, ini ada teknologinya yang membuat efisien. Kalau ini dua disatuin, dimasukin ke manajemen, ini menjadi si industrinya jadi bagus. Tapi kita harus si regulasi segala macam harus support supaya semuanya smooth. Jangan ada yang menjegal. Kalau jegal bahaya banget sih, kira-kira kayak gitu sih. Tapi kalau kita lihat di IoT keren, komunitasnya tumbuh banget sih.
Okay, Jay, sure.
Yeah. So first of all, that first question, what are the differences between different industry sectors, right? Because you do see industry sectors moving at different speeds or investing in different areas, faster than others. I think there are a few that I can think of. Sorry. No. Okay. So there are a few, that. Factors, right, that I can think of, and I feel like I should probably write like a whole article about these factors because I think it's quite interesting, right? So competition absolutely affects their investment in cloud. Capital, of course, risk. What's the risk that they're willing to take in order to move quickly, and the velocity of change in their industry, which is somewhat driven by those other three things as well. So those four things really drive, the adoption among cloud, right? And you'll see them investing in certain areas depending on those factors, right? So finance. They're willing to take a risk in certain spaces and unwilling to take a risk in others. Healthcare, retail, it's the same sort of thing. I think in terms of those organizations which move the fastest, especially when it comes to edge, are media, gaming, retail. They are very driven. The pace of change and the B2C functionality of those businesses is massive. So you see them adopting, in particular, edge type use cases very, very quickly. The question around Industry 4.0 is interesting as well.
Dia orang Amerika.
It's interesting because when cloud was first launching, I would say that manufacturing was probably one of the laggards in those areas in terms of cloud adoption. But the interesting thing about manufacturing, of course, is manufacturing has always been sort of like first when it comes to trends like automation, and cloud and its capability to automate are growing. And now you see new AI models around things like not just predictive maintenance, but these new agentic models, right? Which are these AI agents that not only can answer questions, but can actually put a plan together and execute according to that plan. So, for manufacturing, that's a huge boom for them, and I see it playing a huge part in Industry 4.0.
Oke, cukup menjawab ya. Ada yang lain yang mau bertanya? Cukup? Oke, kalau tidak ada pertanyaan lagi, mungkin kita akan tutup sampai sini ya. Kalau ada pertanyaan, silakan. If you have still question, silakan sampaikan ke tim Agracom lewat saya atau Agnes. Dan nanti kita akan sampaikan ke J dan Pak Ono. Oke, atas nama Atamai, terima kasih telah kehadiran Anda. Mungkin thank you J and Pak Ono. Semoga kita bisa ketemu di acara selanjutnya. Thank you. We meet again in next event.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later.
See you later.